A hot topic and a lot of discussions right now in the real estate world is around seller financing. How to approach a seller about seller financing, different types of seller financing, benefits, downsides, all that kind of stuff.
What's going on, guys? Hey, I got a question on my seller financing video that I posted a couple weeks ago. And they're asking about what happens if there's an agent involved, or what happens if there's a listing agent. Do you go through the listing agent? How do you work through an agent? Do you make your offer through your agent? And so let's offer some ideas. Let's offer some feedback on this. So, quick story. I purchased my beach house here in Charleston, South Carolina through a listing agent with seller financing. I purchased my mountain house in Western North Carolina through a real estate agent with seller financing. I purchased my island over by Hilton Head in South Carolina through two real estate agents with seller financing, and I purchased the mainland property next to my island through two real estate agents with seller financing, all in the past 18 months when the market's way hotter than it is right now. So let's dive into what happened, what that looked like. So first of all, if there's a listing through an agent on a property that you want to buy, you do not go around them and try to circumvent them in order to go direct to the seller. Why? Because it creates bad blood right out of the gate, right? Not only does it look sketchy that you're doing that, the agents could be pissed and going against you immediately, and it just looks like you're a shady person if you go direct to the seller, even if the seller is like, well, it came directly to me, but like it's listed with my agent. If somebody tries to come directly to me and cut out my agent on a deal that's listed, it gives off a bad taste in my mouth, and it seems like they're a sketchy kind of a person. So don't do it. You're better than that. Have better morals, better values. They have an exclusive listing. It's the seller's responsibility to pay that agent a fee no matter what. So why not work with the agent instead of trying to work against them? The second thing to understand is sellers are more likely to seller finance today than they were in the past, right? Because interest rates are going up. So now sellers have this price point in their mind that their house is worth this much or their property is worth this much, and they're not willing to come down from that. Buyers, because of interest rates, are hitting a ceiling on how much they're willing to pay for a property. How do you bridge this gap? Sellers won't come down, buyers won't come up, unless the buyer's so motivated that they're sitting on too much cash and they're willing to take a lesser of a return on their investment, or sellers are so motivated that they have to sell, that they're willing to sell for a lower price point. Or go to them with seller financing. Hey, I can give you your price point, but it's got to be on my terms. And if you go to them and say, hey, because interest rates are 6 or 7%, I'm paying too much of my monthly payment to the banks on their interest. Instead, and I can't pay you that much in principal, instead, what does it look like if you become my bank? And I pay you your sales price at a 4% interest rate, and I can give you the price that you wanted, that you think your property's worth from last year when interest rates were 4%. Because that's the only time that your property's gonna be worth what you're asking for, is if interest rates come back down to 4%. So if they don't come back down, you're not gonna be able to sell your property. If they do, maybe, that's very speculative though, or you can just be the bank right now. I'll give you your price point. I just need you to be my bank, all right? I need you to carry back the terms. So I need you to seller finance it at a 4% interest rate. Sellers are more open to doing that today than they were 6, 12, 24 months ago. So understand that that is a big open conversation, an open door for you to walk through and start making offers that way. The third thing I would mention is that sellers of commercial property are buying those commercial properties because of investment purposes, because they like the idea of residual income. You can make an offer to them. They don't want to sell because they don't want residual income anymore. They want to sell because they typically don't want to handle the management, or they want to take a couple of chips off the table from what this investment looks like. But they do like residual income. So what if you go to them and say, hey, you're a smart business person. You bought this for investment purposes. What are you going to do with your money? You're going to go throw it in a CD or throw it in some, like they're already comfortable. They're already confident in that property. You can make an offer to them for them to be the bank. Let me bring 10%, 20%, 30% down, and you be the bank and carry back the note at a 4% interest rate. Now, you're secured by a property that you're already comfortable with, you're already confident in, I give you some money right now, and you're making a higher return than you would in the stock market. Well, stock market, somebody can earn 8%. Oh yeah, is that what the stock market's earned over the past 6 months? No, not only did they not make a return in the stock market, but their principal value lost 20 to 30%. So now they have a stable, protected principal balance backed by a piece of real estate that they're confident in, and at the same time, they're getting a better return than what they can get in the stock market. That's an easy conversation to have with them. The other thing that you can do in order to show the value, let's say you want to negotiate a little bit lower of a price point, you can say, hey, I'm going to negotiate a little bit lower of a price point, but let's add in what those interest payments look like over the course of the next 6, 12, 36, 60 months, 120 months. And if you show them how much interest they're going to be making on your loan over the course of the next 3, 5, 10 years, they'll be able to, you'll be able to quantify on top of the purchase price. Not only am I paying you your $2 million asking price, but because of the interest that you're going to make on this loan over the next 5 years, look at boom, 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 boom. You add it all up, and now they're making $2.7 million or $2.4 million or whatever the interest rate is and whatever the time frame is. Add that all up and show them that that's the true value that they're getting from seller financing to you versus just getting an amount of cash right now. That's an important part of the puzzle. I've also found, not only on the investment side, that sellers are more willing to carry back financing, but also on higher end single family. Because these are typically people who don't need the money, or they're more sophisticated financially, right? Or they're entrepreneurial and they understand an investment side of things. So they're more open and more willing to do seller financing on properties that are potentially $1 million or more. My beach house I bought for $3 million from somebody who used to own a bunch of different buildings, own a bunch of different real estate, own a bunch of different businesses, and so they were very open to doing seller financing. Same thing with my mountain house. That guy had a business that he sold, owned some investment real estate, owned a couple other properties, owned a commercial building in downtown Franklin, North Carolina, which is where my property is, and so he was familiar with getting payments, right? And he was at an age where he wanted predictable revenue coming in every single month from a property, backed by a property that he was very confident in. And so I gave him some upfront money to move along to his next chapter of life, and at the same time, he has essentially an annuity that pays him for the next 10 years of his life. And that's figuring out problems. That's solving other people's problems. We take a look at the island. Those guys bought it for investment purposes, used it for personal use for the past, 8 to 10 years, and now they want to sell it. They like the investment. They don't need the money. They bought it for $1 million. They sold it to me for $2.5 million. Yeah, I bought an island for $2.5 million. I think it's a smoking deal. I think I could sell it right now for 5 to 6 at least, maybe 10. Anyways, these guys are into it for $1 million. I gave them $750,000 down. So they got almost all their chips off the table. They're only carrying back a little bit, and they have a note for $1.75 million that's going to pay them for the next 5 years. Interest, and then they get a lump sum in 5 years. It's another really cool situation because they're an investor, because they get it. The mainland property that I bought for $4.8 million was a guy who owned a commercial contracting business. He had a construction or electrical business that did all commercial work, and he ended up coming in and buying this property for investment purposes, built it all out, made it really nice, used it as a second home for a few years and sat on it. And when I sat down with him and I made an offer through my agent, who's very aware, who was an investor also and could competently convey that idea to this other agent, this seller of the mainland property that I'm buying for $4.8 million, he wanted to meet with me. So I went and sat down with him. He wanted to make sure that I'm somebody who's going to pay the note, who's going to pay the mortgage. So I gave him my background. I gave him my personal financial statement. By the way, he's the first person who's seller financed a deal to me, who's ever asked for my personal financial statement, ever. And I have over $10 million of other property that's been seller financed by people who have never asked for my personal financials ever. And he sat down with me and he told me, he's like, Tim, having money is a problem just like not having money is, right? When you have too much money, you don't know what to do with it. You don't know where to get a yield. You don't know where to invest it. You don't know if it's a safe investment or not. So he goes, having money is a problem that I don't want to have. I don't want all this cash. What I'd prefer to do is create a note and have you make payments to me on it and let me seller finance this for you. And that's the deal that we ended up cutting. So understanding that agents who list higher end types of properties are much more competent when it comes to investment conversations and understanding that side of things. They're just more sophisticated in being able to convey that knowledge. I like going directly to the listing agent because they're earning both sides of the commission. You know, typically you have to understand and calculate in that if their commission is going to be 6%, you're going to have to bring at least 6 to 10% down in order to be able to pay that agent off. Overheating? Shit. So to wrap that all up, understand that agents that list multi-million-dollar properties are typically a little bit more sophisticated and can competently convey these thoughts, convey these ideas and what the seller financing looks like to the seller. So you have a level of confidence there. Also know that the sellers are more business savvy, more financially literate than maybe a seller of a single family type property, because they bought these properties, especially if it's an investment property or it's a very high-end home, they bought it for investment purposes or because they make a lot of money and they're pretty good financial wherewithal, right? And then thirdly, realize that you can quantify it to make it more attractive for the seller by doing seller financing than you can even by just writing them a check or getting your own financing from a bank and cashing them out in full. So if you guys want some more insights on creative financing, you got to follow my boy Pace Morby. He's a very good friend of mine. He's one of those guys that's like, he's such a good dude and over delivers so much with his coaching and his mentorship that like I love promoting him because he's a great friend of mine. We're closing on a couple hundred apartments over the next like 60 days together as well. And he's one of the best at seller financing and really conveying the conversation and having the dialogue in a way that's crafted very easy to have the conversation with a seller and with an agent about the attractiveness of doing seller financing. So go and check out Pace Morby. He's an absolute rock star and offers a ton of value. We got some butterflies here. So if this is helpful, hopefully it answers some of your questions. If you got other questions about seller financing or anything, personal finance, real estate, entrepreneurship, lifestyle design, don't hesitate to ask the questions in the comments. I love getting questions because it gives me more ideas for content and I can answer those for you. So put those in the comment section below. Please like the video, share this with anybody else who's really, trying to wrap their head around some seller financing strategies and the philosophy behind it, if it'll help them. And please subscribe to the channel. We're always trying to over-deliver as much as we possibly can with as much value that we can. And I appreciate you guys sharing the video and I appreciate you guys sharing some insights. So thank you for being here. Until next time, be your best.